Welcome, welcome, wild women, to today's live about destruction, which I thought was quite a strong word that I didn't expect to use, transformation and liberation. So I'm just going to go to my laptop as well, so I can then see people's comments when they come on, and to give people a little bit of time to join. Yeah, here we are. I'm just checking that. So I just think what we've been doing is amazing. I've been trying to catch up on as many lives as I possibly can, because it's just so beautiful seeing us all coming together. It's so beautiful seeing us sharing who we are and what we're doing. There's just so much amazing stuff, I shouldn't really say, in here, passion and energy, and bringing that all together. So when Midplay first put it up and I saw WILD, I don't know why I went to L, the liberation, because it didn't really, I didn't realize at the time how much it was going to resonate with me until I went and looked up the word, because my business is called Unfold Your Freedom. For those of you who haven't met me, I'm Chantal. I'm a confidence mentor, intuitive guide and Reiki master. And I've called it Unfold Your Freedom because it's about feeling free. But what I realized was when I looked at the word liberation, it's also about setting yourself free. And I feel once we set ourselves free, then we actually feel free. So that's why I sort of chose that to do that. So I'm going to just ask for those of you who are on the live now, or those of you who are asking the replay, I don't know if you've got your candle with you, a little tea light. Do you have something yellow close at hand? I had to really look because yellow is not actually my color. So I've got my I've just gone blank. It'll come to me in a moment. That's called having menopausal moments. And a beautiful oil a friend made for me years ago called Confidence, because I'm going to really work around the solar plexus, because this for me is where we get the courage, the confidence, the willpower, which I'm going to take you through, to be able to feel free, to be able to feel liberated, to be able to let go of all our stories. So what I'd like us to do now is just take a nice deep breath. And all I'd like you to do now, if you do have your candle, if you don't, just visualize yourself lighting one, which I'm going to do. All I want you to do is just light your candle. And if you want to just say, your name, because it's really important we start owning who we are. And that is also owning our name. So I didn't own mine for a long time because it was always different, particularly because I wasn't brought up in France. I was brought up here in Australia. So I found actually owning my name quite difficult, which then meant owning me. So I'd like you just to light your candle, like your tea light, and just say your name. I am Chantal. I'm here and I am present. And if you'd like to then put that into the comments as well, just to really acknowledge that I am here and I am present for this time that we are here together. So I'll put mine in right now. Okay, and my little candle went out. So I think I just want us to start lighting that flame of who we are. Lighting that flame, because I'm going to do something at the end. This is about us just acknowledging that beautiful flame that's within us. And also, yellow. Didn't think of that. And because so many of us, and I think this is also why so many of us do the work that we do, is that flame has either been extinguished, or it's so tiny that we actually don't even know it's there anymore. So how did I get started with this? I think, and why did I come up with that name? I think what happened was I've been working on myself for many years, but about over 7 years ago, I was recommended a book called by Pema Chodron, When Things Really Fall Apart. And it's heart advice for difficult times. And I've actually read it twice, and I made notes when I was looking at this up. And it really hit me that I'll go for my story, that I've been working on myself for many years, from a very young age, actually, because my father was an alcoholic and we lived in Europe and we had really nowhere to go. So at the time, I would be driven about an hour and a half from Zurich to Bern to an Alateen meeting that was in German. And so I started looking at this. What does this mean? So I was so I didn't realize until I was looking back how traumatized I was about being traumatized by living with that sort of environment. We'd come from Australia where we had the home, we had the garden, we had the most beautiful area and space. And we'd gone to Switzerland there. We had no family. This was about 50 years ago where we had no language. At that point, you didn't have the same amount of tourists or foreigners living there and language. So, hi, Aisha. Lovely to see you. Welcome to today with your beautiful energy. And I think, Aisha, and I'm going to actually speak to you directly, part of what we did together with that conversation we had has supported me in creating this today. So whilst living in Switzerland, when I look back over the years, I was only 9, and I realised I wasn't safe in the home because we lived in an apartment. As I said, we'd gone from a big home into an apartment, but I wasn't also safe in the environment because we didn't speak the language, we didn't have family, we didn't have anything here. Hi, beautiful Flynn, thank you for being here and present with me. I feel very touched when people join and become part of this, because it's sort of, when we don't feel confident in ourselves, we often don't know that we have a story to share. We don't feel we are good enough. We don't feel we have anything to offer, depending on, how we've been brought up in this world. So coming back to that, so when I wrote this book, what I read this book, and I'll come back to those who I haven't seen it, When Things Fall Apart. When I was also going through Alateen, Adult Children of Alcoholics, and then Al-Anon, something came up where we were in a group session, and the gentleman who was running the course or the program said to us, "Who are you?" And I just sat there and excused me. I thought, what the fuck do you mean? I was about 20. I didn't get that. I didn't understand what he meant, but it stayed within me. And the other thing that really stayed with me was a couple of years beforehand, before I came back to Australia from England, my mother had said to me in the kitchen, which I thought at the time was really quite cruel, she could no longer cope with me. She could no longer cope with my aggression and my outbursts and my anger. And I didn't understand fully then until I look back now. What had happened was that I had gone, that was my way of operating. That was my way of protecting myself. That was my way of protecting who I was deep down. And I realize now, and I think we all have this, and I'd like you to think about this as we go through this. What beautiful qualities do you have that you haven't acknowledged yet? Or just starting to. So when you feel again called to, I'd love you to start sharing that with me. And what I'm also going to do is I want to then pause for a moment, because I've jumped straight in. I want us to sit quietly, and I want to actually go into a small meditation with us now, and to think about, what does it set me free? What does liberation mean for each one of us? Okay, so when you're ready, making sure you're comfortable. Back straight if you can, hands gently in your lap. Just taking a beautiful deep breath in. And as you exhale, I just want you now to exhale any stress you might have been feeling. And as you inhale, I just want you to just bring your energies here. So just bring all those fragmented energies. So hopefully have your eyes closed gently. And all I want you to do at the moment is just simply be present with yourself. Simply just tuning into your body. Tuning into where you might be feeling any tension. Because remember, our bodies actually tell us. Connecting to your beautiful heartbeat. Just allowing yourself to settle, relax. Using your breath to soothe you. I'd like you to take yourself somewhere where you feel safe. It could be somewhere imagined, it could be somewhere real. And I want you to step into that safe space. It could be womb-like, it could be a room, outdoors. And as you step into that space, I want you to let go of any anxieties or stresses you might be having, and walking into this space where there's just love, happiness. You feel protected. making yourself comfortable in that space. Now I'd like you to bring in the color yellow, that beautiful yellow. Feeling yourself surrounded by this color. And now opening up your chest, your heart, or even actually opening up, putting your hand on your solar plexus. And I want you now to open yourself up to what does liberation mean for you. To set yourself free. And remembering when you're sitting in meditation, without judgment, just being with what is. You find you being distracted away, use your breath to come back right into this moment. You might sense something, you might feel, you might hear. Or you might just simply be with what is, that emptiness. Because when we start setting ourselves free and start feeling liberated, we no longer worry about getting it right. Because we understand that being right in this moment is exactly as it's meant to be. So again, I'll just say, what does it mean, liberation for you? To set yourself free. If you feel called to, you might like to put a comment in the post when you're ready. Or you might like to just start some writing. Because there's a freedom in this space that we're creating here today. There's a freedom for you to actually step into how you want to be with me in this time. Because when you feel confident in who you are, that is also when you start setting yourself free. So start exploring, stepping out. Making comment, as I said, if you wish to comment, let me know. So when you're ready, just opening your eyes and coming back into the space. And thank you for going on that journey with me. So again, as I'm talking, I want you just to get a sense of keep checking in. What does it mean for you? Make notes, write things down, but keep drawing in that beautiful yellow. Keep just being present with that. So what I learned over the years was, so coming back to my story, was that, and they use this in the 12-step program, you've got to hit your own rock bottom. And that is why this personal work and is terribly personal, because what is my rock bottom may not be yours. And that's why I liked when Pema Chodron wrote, when things fall apart. It is your own journey, because only you can have something that falls apart. You see, when we are brought up, and particularly as women, we often compare ourselves with others. We're also taught as young girls, don't share our stories. We need to be the good girl. Don't share our emotions. Don't express ourselves. Someone else has it worse off than you. So what that does is it actually denies us our reality. It denies us our truth. And I know for me, because we were brought up very well, we were brought up in a privileged environment, but I didn't feel privileged emotionally. And that took me until, in fact, last year when my partner and I were invited back to Switzerland to visit friends of mine that I'd known from when I was a child. And she was one of the only people who'd really seen the home it was like for us. And I'm getting quite teary with this. And she's always acknowledged my experience because she'd actually met my father. Because on this surface, like we all do, we put on this facade. We put on this brave face because we actually feel ashamed or embarrassed, or we think it's actually not that bad. And we just keep surviving. We just keep doing. We just keep hurtling through life. We touch on a little bit of therapy here, a little bit of therapy that, but we actually don't want to admit. And that then comes to the root chakra, about being disloyal to our family, about, not having our tribe, because we so desperately want to hang on to having family, to having love, to feeling like we belong to something. I, for a long time, felt I was separate because, as mentioned earlier, brought up in Switzerland, I was separate anyhow. I was always die Fremde, which is the foreigner. So she took me back to where I was brought up, which of course has changed completely. So it was actually quite a surreal experience because the apartment blocks were still there. But when we lived there, there was only really grass and orchards, and deers used to come down, and we used to ski at the back. Mum would take us skiing. Now when I went back, there was all apartments. So part of it was I knew I felt it, I knew I related to it, but I didn't fully. Now I can remember just standing in front of the apartment block, looking up to my bedroom and our part of the apartment, and this clear voice said to me, "I believe you. I believe you." That last year was my turnaround, ladies. That is what really stepped me into setting me fully free. Obviously, little bits and pieces are still coming along. Because often we don't feel we believed. Not only do we not feel believed from outside, so we keep seeking validation or support or acknowledgement. Let's face it, we all love to have appreciation from someone else. But I didn't know how to believe myself. That was the biggest thing. I kept denying it. I kept pretending it wasn't that bad. Dad hadn't fully sexually abused me, but he had done it covertly. He had done it in his own way. I even feel disloyal now, ironically, saying that to you. I don't voice that out very often because it still feels, did that really happen? How could someone who loved me do that to me? Deep breath in. So over the years, I've been going through, I did Reiki, I've done different courses, I did my Gestalt therapy training, and then finally my mother insisted that we learn how to do meditation. And at the time I thought, no, Mum, I've got enough on my plate. I don't need to learn anything else as well. I've already got Reiki, I've got this, I've got that. But something clicked in me. And we had our local teacher, Eric Harrison, who's well known here, and he's written quite a few books internationally. He came to us. We actually worked with him for 10 years. That's how it got me into meditation. That's what got me understanding the power of meditation. And that's why I advocate for me. Not only do we have apps and guided meditations, because I think they're brilliant in many ways, but at the same time, I also believe that they can keep us away from who we are. They can actually, the voices, so sometimes we do need to be guided. I get that. I actually prefer not to have guided meditations most of the time. Part of that is because of PTSD. I just find too much noise bothers me. I've learned how to be with stillness. So being with stillness is actually very confrontational. When we sit with ourselves, and this is what Pema Chodron keeps saying is, when we sit with ourselves, that's when we are confronted with our demons, our stories, our negativity, the emotions we're not meant to even experience, let alone share, let alone express. So most of us still keep running. We keep running. We keep distracting ourselves. So it can be with busyness. It can be with food. It can be with substance. It can be for whatever it is for you. It could be shopping. It could be sex. It could be, for me, a lot of it was I'd binge shop. The other thing I didn't binge eat, but I used to eat quite a lot of sugar because that would keep, that quick rush. And I talked. So that was particularly my throat chakra. I was a talker. I'd babble like a brook, as my father said. The positive of that was that I actually got to, because I traveled the world a lot through my family, I got to meet people. I got to talk. I got to hear all these amazing experiences. I spoke all my languages because I love meeting people. I love understanding your culture. The other side of it is, which took me a long time to realize, was what I was doing with that, using those words, was actually keeping you away from me. So you can have those of us that blah all over the place, or those of us who have more passive aggressive. Either way, what we are doing is holding a part of ourselves back. We are actually hiding that beautiful, vulnerable side of us because out of fear. And something I've only realized again just recently with all what's happening in our world with this pandemic and, you know, with this physical social isolation was I'm still fear-based. I didn't realize how much I was fear-based. It was only when we were told or to stay at home, now fortunately where we live we can still get out, that I realized it was actually giving me permission to be able to stay at home, because I've been a homebody for a long time. The PTSD changed me considerably. I went into menopause. I lost completely who I was. I had no idea what was happening for me. So I became agoraphobic and had social phobia, which for me was unusual because I was always the one that went out. I was the one that traveled the world. I could drive anywhere, anyhow. And suddenly I couldn't do anything. I was on the couch. That was it. So I realized when they then said just recently that they're going to start opening within WA some of our borders or giving us a little bit more freedom, I actually went into anxiety because that means that I could go out again. And I didn't realize I still needed that permission to be able to stay at home. So a lot of us comes from fear-based. So again, coming back when she talks about when things fall apart, when we have traumas happen in our life or something happens, and again, don't compare, that is when we hit a rock bottom. But sometimes that is not enough. Sometimes we have to go further. So I realized my first major rock bottom was when my father died just over 20 years ago now. My world completely collapsed around me. I lost part of me. I lost the part of being a daughter. I lost the part of who was I? What was my father? Because we never really reconciled. We'd only just started reconciling because he lived in Europe, in England. We lived here. And about 6 months before he died, and I'm looking back now, I can see he was getting himself ready, even though he died unexpectedly. He was actually getting himself ready because he reconciled with even my mum, he was divorced from, and my brother, myself. So it was really interesting to watch. So I was going, yay, at last, I might have an opening to be able to be around my father, to set myself free from this story. Then he died. He died unexpectedly, out of the blue, and I didn't have a chance to say goodbye. That rocked my world as a daughter because I'd never been the special one. I'd always been the female in the family, not the male. Even though my brother was younger than me, being brought up in my European background, I was very constrained. So again, with this, you know, not free about being the girl. I wasn't meant to go to uni. I was meant to be married young. I was meant to, be married, take on the husband's name. And I look back now and I didn't do any of that. I came back to Australia because Dad had threatened that if I came back to Australia, he would cut me off. But something at the time told me I'm coming back anyhow because I wanted to know my Australian side. I went to uni. I never married, never wanted to marry. I've got a beautiful partner now, 14 years, and I didn't want to take his name. I never would, never will. So when I look back now, parts of me, which now might not sound quite so liberating, but in those days it was quite liberating to do that. You know, I look back at my mum, she broke the rules too. And I realized there was a part of me there that did too. Yet at the same time, we can have these two sides of us where I broke the rules on one hand, but I was still the good girl on the other. I still wanted to people please. I still wanted to get acknowledgement. I still wanted to be part of a group. That is so important, and it still is for me to be part of a community because I didn't have that as a child. So again, as I'm talking here and you want to share anything, does anything resonate? Does anything feel like what's coming up for you? Have you hit your rock bottoms? What helped you turn around? Because that when you start hitting your rock bottoms, that is when you start to transform. And I'll come back to a bit later. So as if that wasn't enough, I kept going. So what happened was, yes, I grieved my dad. It took me a long time. So remember, this work is very personal. It takes you as long as it takes. We are often shamed into things. We're shamed into, oh, you're not feeling better enough. Oh, you're not feeling good enough. Oh, your father, in this case. But that was 2 years ago. No, late women, wild women. No, no, no. Our own journey is our own journey. Please, please remember that. When we feel confident in who we are, we can actually see more and more how important that is. We are our own people. We have our own rock bottoms. We have our own journeys. So the second one came where I actually was thinking of having a sperm donor child because I hadn't met anyone who I was going to have a child with. I hit 41 or 2. And And I definitely wanted a sperm child. Desperately wanted a child. And part of me had been anxious about having a child because of my upbringing. What if I had a boy? Because I had such, even though I loved men, but my father, I was really concerned about how would my son, if I had a child, become like my father. I'd seen my brother change. So there was that. And then the other aspect was, no matter what child whether a beautiful boy or a girl, would I smother them with love? Because I hadn't been smothered with love. My mother had been amazing with us, and she kept all our needs met, but she was also struggling with my dad. She didn't know how to cope. So I didn't have that support on how to be confident, how to step out, how to be myself, how to speak up. Because dad was very, very frightening. And I've lost track of what I was going to say from there. Anyhow, oh, that's right. So I had my appointment booked, and I knew I was getting tighter and tighter. Well, anyhow, the universe provided for me. I ended up in hospital about 10 days beforehand with a total and utter major breakdown. I couldn't even tell you what my name was. I couldn't sign the forms because I couldn't put everything together. So, and I thought I'd only be in hospital for a few days. It was longer than that. Because I didn't take enough clothes. I was going to go back to work because, you see, driven. We are still driven, ladies. Often I want you to check in now. Do you still feel sometimes you're driven? Do you still sometimes that you operate from fear? Because I know sometimes we think we've overcome things. Sometimes we think we're not driven from fear. But deep down, there's still something pushing us to keep going. So I needed to get back to work. I needed to get back to make money. I didn't know how to take time out. So that was a big thing for me. And then so various things happened for them. That is when meditation came into my life. And I started to be taught. He taught us how to, and this is how I work with my work, or when I do my online training with my course, meditation courses, how he taught us to be. Again, I want you to think about, how do you use your meditation? He actually taught us how to be in the present moment. He taught us how to stay with the discomfort of how we were feeling. I was taught how to work with my thoughts, how to be able to have my thoughts come in and go out, how to stay with that discomfort, because so many of us don't like to stay with the discomfort of how we are feeling because it is uncomfortable. But it's only when you stay fully with that discomfort and keep looking beneath that, do you actually come to the core. And that can take time. That's not going to happen in one off. That takes time. You keep dropping in. Because we've got to undo. Now this is coming back to, we've got to undo. So deconstruct. That's when I used that word, deconstruct or destruct. It was quite a strong word. I didn't understand why it came up. But I realized we actually need to deconstruct everything that we've been taught, everything we've believed we've been, everything that we have taken on. That takes time. Sometimes it can be explosive. As I said, like you have a major breakdown, or the next one I had was a car accident. So I'll come back to that in a moment. So you have your own, and that then literally, I don't know about you, the words to use, then you suddenly go, excuse the word, who the fuck am I? What on earth has happened here? So my last major experience was where that totally happened, was a car accident about 11 years ago, just over 11 years ago. And looking back now, I actually lost myself completely. With my dad who'd been part of me, the daughter, that side of me, but the car accident was totally me. I had to actually deconstruct everything. It brought back up all my nightmares, my traumas, my fears. And so I had acute PTSD. So I did have a lot of support with my psychologist and a GP and a beautiful Kara. But what was really interesting was, and I've learned this since, that I automatically stopped in that time doing meditation, Reiki and tapping. Because when you are in acute trauma, or it's been my experience and from what I read, it can actually trigger and make it worse if you actually sit in silence. And if you are going to do that, I would really suggest you do it with someone you trust and really knows, because it can re-traumatize. You can actually make it worse. It was only now looking back, I instinctively knew not to do that. I instinctively knew that I couldn't. First of all, I was too busy just trying to be in my body, mind and soul and deal with the pain and the whiplash and the trauma and the lawyers and all that sort of stuff. However, over a period of time, so that, as I said, opened me up completely. I sat on the couch having no idea who I was. I couldn't even get in the car. And let me tell you that really does take you to your rock bottom. That really takes you all to who am I? Because everything I knew about me, all the constructs that I had been letting go of slowly, completely finished me, completely wiped me off. There was nothing there. And there's excitement in that, but not at the time, because then you've got to work out, how am I going to come back? How do I come back? What do I do to come back? And that's in the journey on its own. But that is when the transformation starts to happen. And it takes courage. So coming back to what I was going to do, bringing in the, and I will look at some of my notes with the solar plexus. So what I found in myself was that I needed to regain my self-esteem and my confidence, okay? So we invest an image, as I said, we invest an image of ourselves that has been created for us. But we actually need to look at what belongs to us and what doesn't. What are my values? So think about, as I'm talking through this, we'll take a breath. I want you to sit quietly just for this moment and think about, what are your values? Are they your values in particular? Now, obviously, we can't do much in this time, even make notes, but this is just to get you thinking, okay? When we have these constructs, when we don't know how to be ourselves, of course, what it does, it stops us going out in that world and being fully in ourselves. And that's why I love what we're doing here and sharing all our stories and how we operate, because we've got to build that confidence again. And particularly as we are women, entrepreneurs, business women, I don't know quite what you'd call yourselves, but we need to have that confidence to step out. And I know it's only taken me really till now to fully step into who I am, because I'd started with a skincare range, a natural skincare range, which I've only just recently let go of that business, and that took a lot. But even then, for me, it was really important that women, she who feels beautiful is free. So if you think about when you start and where you are now, is something still there, or how much have you segued? So for me, I then lost sight of me again because I went too much in the masculine side of my business, of the doing, the striving. Still was doing that until recently. Doing, striving, being, having to do it like everyone else, wasn't getting it right. Can you hear that? The voice changes. The blah, blah, blah comes back. So, that's right. So the confidence holds us back from us being truly who we are meant to be, who we actually want to be. So we then don't know how to make ourselves fully visible. Now, I thought it was interesting when I've asked friends or people have seen me, but you're always the one that walked in the door. Yes, I've got the color. I'm the one that could just talk to anyone. But you know what? There was still an element of me was shy about being visible, really visible, and particularly in business, because when we are in business, we are selling ourselves. And I know there's a lovely new way of doing that now. We share stories, but it still means putting yourself out there. It still means being vulnerable. That is when it comes back to setting yourself free, to being confident, to having that self-esteem, where you begin to really believe in who you are, And of course, as our businesses change, as we grow, that's going to keep coming up. And that's what I love about having your tools, meditation, tapping, whatever it is for you, yoga, dancing, creating. You always have these tools to fall back on, because that's part of life. You will keep being pushed. Your edges will be pushed. Your boundaries will be pushed. But how can you be in that space to allow yourself to drop into that stillness and go, okay, what is happening for me here? Because that's really, really important. Also, when you start to believe in yourself, what happens in honoring yourself and your own self-esteem is that you stop comparing yourselves with others. You stop feeling less than, and we stop therefore pleasing everyone else. We're able to say yes. We're able to say yes to ourselves, no to others, and we start putting ourselves first. That's really important. So again, I want you really to think about that. So when we start stepping into that space, another thing that I realized, and I was taught this many years ago, when we are still blaming the situation or the person for who we are, we remain in victim. So I'm just going to use these words. We remain in this poor me. I don't know how to get out of it. This keeps happening to me. But what I was told was when you go from blaming to accountability. So when you can make the situation, person, whatever, accountable, what happens is that you step into responsibility. So for a long time, it took me a long time, but I was born into this family. I didn't know anything else. How do I change myself? But that was convenient because, we often like to stay in the unknown. We like to stay in even though it's familiar. To step out and to really look at yourself does take courage. It really does take courage, and it can be incredibly uncomfortable. And I mean, at times I've actually vomited, because it's like, oh my God, is that it? But what happens is when you start taking responsibility, you stop making excuses, not only for the person, the event, but also for yourself. And you don't get so dictated by impulses and feelings. So that's when self-discipline comes in. We learn how to have discipline. We learn how to stop ourselves. We learn how to be with ourselves, and it strengthens our resolve to do things. Because when you start changing yourself, so when you start deconstructing and to start to transform, it does take discipline. Because often our ego or that side of us, that old part, will keep drawing us back in, because this is what's familiar. Because when we are going somewhere new, when we are stepping into our beautiful beings, it's unfamiliar. We haven't become comfortable with that new part of us. We haven't had the experience of, how will people be around me? What will it be like if I say no to someone, particularly if it's someone you feel anxious about or fear? So you've got to take these steps. It's in the past, I used to take 2 bigger steps and fall in a heap. So I wanted you to really think about, to just take little steps, just keep taking little steps, keep coming back, having your safe environment. I have what I call my sacred space. I have my morning journaling, my evening, because this is where I keep going back to be with me. And so there's that. So, okay. So coming back to self-responsibility, it stops you also from saying, I can't, I shan't, I shouldn't. And because what that is, you're forever weakening your own resolve. You're forever weakening yourself. Actually, what you're not doing is not building up trust in yourself. And I've read a very good book by Stephen Covey about speed of trust. And that's one thing he says is when you say you'll do something and then don't, and you make excuses, what happens? You weaken yourself. You actually drop back in trust in yourself. And I really liked that. So again, look at where do you not honor yourself? Where do you not honor the other person? So you might have said yes to something. You go, oh my God, why did I do that? Don't want to do that. And then you keep thinking, I know I can still do this. I want to make an excuse. I don't know how to do that. Or then you might just forget that it's happening. That is when you also let yourself down, not only the other person, but yourself. So this is when it then goes, I just don't want to do it. You just phone the person to say, you know what? Sorry, I'm no longer available. You don't even need to make excuses or justifications because the other person will actually know when you are doing that. So just think about that. So that is about self-responsibility, and that is then also about self-discipline. So then you take, how you act, behave. All right, excuse me, I'm just going to have a glass of water. So these then all contribute to you standing in your power, because when you stand in your power, that's when you start to feel worthy. You can walk away from people that you feel disrespect you. You can walk away from situations. You can stand tall in yourself, because this then gives you courage. This gives you the courage then, build by build, to start transforming, to start experiencing yourself in a different way, to start setting yourself free. And then what you do is as you start to get into that space, you actually begin to enjoy being who you are. Because we are, let's face it, all beautiful, unique women. Everyone has got something special to give this world. We are a gift to ourselves, but to everyone else around us. But remember, to ourselves, we can start setting our own rules. We can start breaking the rules of the social norm, obviously within, do it safely. And I'm just looking back now, that's what I want to do. That's why I'm wanting to step out as the older woman. I want to come out and be visible. I want to show people that growing old isn't to be feared, because that's the other thing. We get caught up in that. We get caught up. We don't feel free. We don't know how to set ourselves free when we're caught up in these constructs of beauty, how we should look, how we should feel, how we should be, how we should dress. Hear that? Again, we're just pounded. But when you take the time to sit there, just sit and go, does this feel right for me? Actually, no, it doesn't. Why doesn't it? What's stopping me from having the courage to step out? How can I step out? Just a little bit, because sometimes a little bit may be enough. But then when you do that and you reward yourself, go, yes, celebrate when you do that, because each time you celebrate, you're building on that, you know. So then also the more courage you have, more courageous you become, then you're more able to step out into the unknown. You're more able to step out into the uncertainty. You're more able to step out into whether it be your business or creativity or travel, whatever it might be. Then you can step out more and more, and then it becomes exciting. Then you go, you know what, I can do this. Yes, it's pushing my boundaries. Yes, I'm feeling uncomfortable, but I can do this. You then create faith in yourself. Deep breath. You know, it's just so beautiful when we can feel this, when we can really feel, when we have faith in ourselves. So, and then in that, all that stuff is, we can then start having fun, ladies. We can start being spontaneous. We can start doing things because we can. We don't have to sit and think about it. We might say yes to something that we wouldn't have done in the past. You know, all these things. Fun. So let's think about, okay, I just want us to, okay, I'm going to take us into a meditation. And I might even start tapping. So I don't know if anyone does tapping, but I'm just going to tap on my collarbone. So that's just a start. And about fun and spontaneity. So when you're ready, just closing your eyes, taking a nice deep breath in, bringing in the beautiful color yellow again, reminding ourselves we're here and we're present. Even say your name again out loud if it's uncomfortable. Say it out loud. So I'm Chantal. I'm here. I'm present. I want you now to start looking at fun. Where do you feel you're not having fun? Where do you feel you haven't set yourself free? So just keep tapping away, because that helps you bring you into body. So just tuning in what's right for you. Where do I feel uncomfortable? Where am I not owning an experience, how I feel? I want you to hold yourself in that space, just saying, I've completely and utterly loved myself as I'm opening myself out to any discomfort now. Where am I not being spontaneous? Keep breathing. Keep breathing into your body. Where am I not being true to myself? So even though I'm feeling uncomfortable, I completely and utterly love myself. Keep tapping, and just now we're going to turn that around and just saying, I'm really excited and looking forward to exploring more. What else do I need to deconstruct or destruct? Getting a real sense now through the tapping of transformation. Getting a sense of how is that going to make your body feel? Light, excited, release pain, feel liberated. So remember, when you set yourself free, liberate yourself, you have freedom. You feel free to be you. So for just the last couple of breaths, I'd like you to just sit quietly, open yourselves up. Who would you be? What would you look like if you were free? If you want to write that down, do. If you'd like to share in the comments, do. And slowly bring yourself back into the space, opening your eyes. And just tuning in. How does your body feel now? Just how does your body feel now? Just even doing that little bit can just tweak something, even if it wasn't now. This is where you get faith. This is where you get trust and confidence in yourself. It might not be now, but something could come up. So just be aware of the next couple of days, because we've been doing all this beautiful work in here, and that things can start triggering, things can start happening, okay? So, and where can you make a commitment to yourself in the next couple of days to do something fun and spontaneous for you? for you, okay? Because as I'm going to finish off in a moment, but it's like this leads to personal power, everyone. Because when you dare to live your life in your own way, that is truly being you, you begin to feel powerful, you begin to feel strong. And then this leads to your own personal power. And I used to find power quite difficult because I was always told that I was such a force and I was strong in that space and all that. And I found that quite difficult to accept. But now I understand it's actually just to do with how you feel about yourself. Because when you have your own personal power, no matter what happens in your life, you know you're going to be able to handle it. Now, I know the last thing that threw us just over 3 years ago, my partner had a very frightening health diagnosis. And for 10 weeks, until he had his second operation, we were, basically he could have, beautiful Finn, thank you, expansive. That's exactly, thank you. That is how we feel, is expansive. Thank you, Finn, for that. Because when you feel like that, you contract, this expands. Beautiful, thank you. And so coming back, that's a good point, because when we were waiting for those 10 weeks for the second operation, he could have dropped dead at any point, and very, very frightening. So my shoulders were here and I had contracted. But let me tell you something, in that space, what supported us was we both meditate. So we meditated together, we meditated individually, we did go and get psychological help. I needed to see a psychologist to support me. But I had all my tools, my sacred tools in my toolbox that I could go back to. I could keep dropping back into that space. That is what helped me out this time more than ever. And of course, second operation made a big difference. So we then, as we finish up, I want you just to visualize. You might even just like to start moving your body. What does that mean? That expansiveness, Finn, as you said, that sense of personal power. What does it mean to set yourself free? Feeling grace. What does that mean to feel grace and movement? And liberation, because that's what it's all about. Where can you feel you can let go again even more? Where can you feel that you no longer need to manipulate situations to control? Everything, your life, everything takes on a new meaning. It really, really does. You feel full of vitality, full of energy. And you begin to experience every moment of your day, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because you see things. It literally is, you begin to smell the roses. And that's the other thing that I loved learning more about meditation through Buddhism, is that you get your child, you become like childlike, you're curious, you get curious like a child, because you start seeing things, the little things, the big things, with joy. You see things in a whole different way. You literally smell the roses in a different way. Cooking becomes different. What you wear becomes different, okay? So think again, what can you do? I know it's my partner, because he's a photographer, an artist and photographer. And he's opening my eyes to the negative space. But not only is he opening my eyes to the negative space, he's opening my eyes to see the most mundane things as extraordinary. Because the ordinary becomes extraordinary when you can still your mind, sift through the stuff, deconstruct, to transform, to liberate. Thank you. Thank you for those of you who've watched on the live, for those on the replay. What I'd like you now just is to sit quietly if you can, or just keep coming back to this. Any comments, I'd love you to do. If you do happen to have your candle, what I'd like you to do now is, again, just saying your name. And as you blow out, I just want you to think about, it's a symbol of setting yourself free. I'm Chantal. I'm looking forward to setting myself free on a whole new level. Deep breath. Thank you, my beautiful souls. You're welcome, Aisha. Thank you. Have a beautiful rest if you're in Australia. Long weekend. Have a beautiful rest of the day. Yeah. And just keep being the most beautiful women that you are. Liberated. Feeling free. Namaste. Bye.